Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. And I would like to ask now Vice Rector Horst Bischof to comment whether or which aspects of this presentation are really relevant for your university, I think. Yeah. I found it very interesting to see that for a research-driven ranking, you don't take account of the possibility or the capability of raising research funds and research money through projects, which is a major indicator, used to be a major indicator in the Austrian educational discussion.
Okay, so good afternoon from my side. So first of all, thanks for your nice presentation. I think you shedded a lot of light on rankings. Well, if I look here at the audience, I see many experts actually in rankings, so they probably also appreciate your presentation. I think one of your main key issues was a ranking of university is not a one-dimensional thing. Universities are multi-dimensional and they have different purposes. And if I just look at Graz University of Technology, we have on the one hand, of course, the thing to produce good research, but also produce good students. We have the technology collaboration and so on. So, and I think this is probably the most important thing. A ranking is not a one-dimensional thing. And this is also, if you look at newspapers, and you said that at the beginning that, especially in Austria, I don't know how it's in other countries, whenever a ranking comes out, the newspapers say, well, Austria drops and we have the bad news. But if you look closer at this ranking, for example, the line ranking, and if you look what University of Graz is doing, or also TU Graz is doing, we're actually quite good in that. Compared to how many 10,000 universities are in the world, and also looking at our budget. But no newspaper reports about that. They always say, well, you dropped in the Shanghai ranking, no more of University of Vienna dropped. Also, if you look at rankings, as you did more closely, look at different sectors, like we have in certain fields we're world class, we're among the best. Nobody reports about that, simply because newspapers are somewhat, I still have somewhat the impression they confuse that with sports. In Austria, we have a skiing competition. Of course, we want the Austrian to be first, second, and third. This is what is to be expected at the ski. But here I can measure one dimension. Who is faster? Is the thing. A university is not a one-dimensional thing. So I think from that point of view, you're completely right. Let me also comment a little bit on some other things. TU Graz has sort of noted that rankings are important, and as you said, for various reasons. Therefore, we have created more than 3 years ago, a ranking project where it said, well, let's look at rankings, what is useful, where we should be present, what should we do to sort of increase our ranking, things as many other universities do. In fact, this has inspired a project by Unico, which had today in the morning, I think, a meeting here in Graz, where there's a sort of a big study in what Austria should do about the rankings and what short-term measurements, what long-term measurements should be taken. So I think this is important to take that seriously, but I think it's also important to educate the others, the broad public, what rankings are and what they are not are. So I think how do you convey your results, how do you do the marketing? And I have some nice examples when you talk sometimes to rectors or vice rectors, and you meet them and they say, well, I don't care about rankings, it is not important for us. Then you meet them 2 years later, they say, well, we are in the line ranking, we are the number, blah, blah. It's so important. You see the perspective change sometimes. So let me come in a little bit to the line ranking and some other rankings you were. I think the line ranking has one big advantage. It's sort of objective in the terms that it uses the Web of Science and does a lot of work in sort of getting affiliations and all these things correct. And you also pay about small details attention, like affiliations, as you were explained. I think this is a perfect thing. But of course, this has also some disadvantages. For example, you were looking just at core publications. Some fields, especially mine, I'm coming from computer science, and you probably know that their conferences play a lot of role, which, and if you ask someone from the field says, well, these are the most important conferences, and this is much harder to get into than you would get into journals, and of course this is not covered, but this is with any ranking, you have a certain bias, and this should be clear. Therefore, I somewhat also like a little bit the U multi-rank that was recently put up, which has more of these indicators, and where you see basically have really this multidimensionality better reflected, at least what I think. But of course has the disadvantage that nobody really sort of then, you don't get a clear score for the newspapers. And there is a nice example how newspapers treat these things really stupid. I think when the U multi-rank was first announced, was I think 2 years ago or something like that, where there was one Austrian newspaper, so you have this 31 rankings, and you have like in this number of indicators, your first, second, and so on. And an Austrian newspaper did the following, said, well, I cannot convey all these numbers, so I average over all these indicators, which is the most stupid thing you can do for a ranking. You know, this is statistically, you know, any mathematician, statistician, you know, but just to get a number up, you know, you do all the effort to produce a serious ranking, having these different indicators and what the newspapers do, and then they convey this information. Well, we have all these 6.5 and this is bad. Looking at more seriously and doing just the correct thing, like taking a median instead of mean, which is much more appropriate. Yeah, so I think there is also a lot of educational things. And there was just one thing which reminded me when I listened to your talk, and we were talking about all these weightings of these different rankings, is I also do a lot of work in machine learning research, and there is a technique called bagging and boosting, which basically takes weak classifiers, which are your indicators, and performs averaging over these weak classifiers. And you can theoretically show by averaging over a lot of weak classifiers, you get statistically better. And probably the right thing to do for ranking is treat each of them as a weak classifier and then look at that as overall. And if you do that, in fact, the top universities will always show up. Top like MIT, ATH will always show up. So there is something there, but the individual ranking, the individual classifier can always be criticized. And I think, but you already said that in your presentation, so therefore I thank you for this sort of nice overview and round it up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.